Okay, it's art talk time. Join us to the front stage as we're going to listen to Natalie Willis moderate Homegrown, creatives committed to working in the region. Come on down.
Okay.
Come on down.
Thank God there's not much people.
You're right, no.
She's like, maybe I could do stage.
So sweet.
I know.
I love it. And like the hair is just giving me like my whole life because I'm just like, oh my god, this is literally Nia's child.
Really? And do you see how I? Oh, that's probably better. Oh, thanks. How I manage that.
Hope for the best. I think I hope for the best. I think you're doing great. She looks like a very happy kid. I think that's the sign. Oh, you're doing great.
I like have notes in case of. Yeah, that's great. I was.
I think honestly they were supposed to do this. I feel very. I'm not normally like a person, but like having a locally and regionally based fair makes sense. It also makes sense for them to do it. I feel like specifically, I feel like this is the thing they were supposed to do.
Yeah, like this might take over a lot of their curriculum.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does.
And also maybe eliminate financial support for them as well, which I think they need to.
Because I feel like that's the thing. It's like it ticks all the boxes. It's just it's gonna take like a couple of years to get rolling with it.
It's fun to see people that get started already and still like so busy, like talking to each other. We've been taking like 10 times the same.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thanks so much for coming out for this talk. So we're going to be kicking off the FUZE Art Fair talk series with locally based artists, because that makes sense for a locally based fair, regionally based fair. So we have the esteemed pleasure of having some incredible Caribbean creatives committed to working in the region here with us today. I'm going to start with just an individual question for all of them, and then we're going to dig into like some sort of wider questions for everybody. But hopefully this will kind of help the artists who are living and working here and those elsewhere to feel a little bit seen and supported. So I'm going to start with Tessa. Could you introduce yourself, and then I'll give you a question.
Yeah, I'm Tessa Whitehead. I'm an artist. I'm based here in the Bahamas. I'm Bahamian. And I have, one of the reasons I think I'm up on the panel is because I have a history working also in the art community. When I first moved home, I started a gallery here called Liquid Courage. And then I moved on to the Diagula Art Foundation, where I worked for 10 years as curator and the director. So I only, this year, was able to become a full-time artist. So a lot of my work has been spread across the community and my own work. And I have a studio here as well called 9 Studios. And so that's where I work and some other artists. So
Perfect.
yeah, that's me.
So as you said, you recently transitioned to working full-time as an artist, which for a lot of people counts as like living the dream. But of course, that dream comes with certain realities in living here as well. So with this in mind, and in looking at your career as a studio artist and the accomplishment of establishing 9, your artist studios, how have your experiences working in studios here and abroad affected 9's development? So I guess what I'm asking is about like whether this is something that was born out of necessity or a desire to build community or a secret third thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. So 9 Studios is studios of 6 artists, 6 spaces. It's next to Pop-Up Studios, which I think has a kind of longer, well-known history here. And I was working in Pop-Up Studios, and the space next door was bank-owned and became kind of available for a potential project.
So fate.
And at the time, Pop-Up was damaged by a hurricane. And I can't remember which hurricane, but
Is it Matthew?
the hurricane was really damaged the studio that I was in. And I knew I needed a different space. And I also felt like Pop-Up was really great for kind of it was like nascent space for starting your career out and for creating coalitions and creating exhibitions. And then I felt there was like a space for a mid-career artist that had less of a it was less cohesive actually, like less about community and more about work. Yeah, so this space is specifically designed for that. Everybody has their own entrance, for example, and there's a communal space, but it's more for working. It's not super suitable for hanging out. So
That's weirdly perfect, though.
All the artists in the space, so it's Sydney Colby, Kayshell Knowles, Matthew Ramming, Delton Barrett, Heino Schmidt, and myself. And everybody's a full-time artist. Heino's also works at university. So it's a really good space for just getting stuff done. And I think one of the problems here is sustainability. So my second concern was trying to make it so that it was really affordable to run. And I literally just took everything electrical out of it. And so the electrical bills are oddly low.
But that's important because it's like, what is the one thing I think that most people complain about, like being in Nassau in particular, is usually power bills, especially in summer. I feel like this is just like a very, very practical, logistical, normal consideration to make, but it's something that I think doesn't tend to go into a lot of things, because it's like, who else is going to be okay with like sweating in their studio but like an artist? You know what I mean? Like it's a very, very particular kind of way to, I think, sort of navigate the environment that we're in.
I think ideally, maybe at some moments, some of the artists probably would prefer it, but it really is prohibitive having high electricity costs. And so between that and water, you just have to be really practical about it. And so we don't have like any fridges, any electricity, any air conditioning, and it's all just overhead LED bulbs. And so each building is about between, it recently surged for other reasons, which may come up later, but it started out at about $20 to $30 a month.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so it was manageable. That was like the beginning of 9.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I really like how you just have completely adapted everything and translated things that you knew to like the space that we're actually in and what makes sense. Because I think what we tend to get a lot of the time is like people kind of coming in and saying that this is the standard for things internationally and this is how it's supposed to go, and then it just completely forgets the context that we're operating in, which is also why things like FUZE are important, because it's just like it's trying to operate within the context in a way that makes sense. So I'm very about it. Thank you, Tessa.
Thank you.
Great. David, you are next. Could you please tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your practice, and then I'll give you a question.
Hi, good afternoon. So my name is David Gumbs. I'm a multimedia artist from St. Martin. I live in, I teach at a visual arts school in Martinique. This past 14, 15 years. I said I would have done 5.
And it's tripled. That's the life of
caught up on me.
educators.
So I try to create interactive, immersive installations. I use a lot of patterns from nature, conch shells, or whatever I can get my hands on that has like a sort of historical background with music or traditional practices, but see how I can augment it with digital work.
Right.
So that's in a sort of niche way I found myself. Yeah. So yeah.
Perfect. No, you got a really unique practice because I think that you're like in a very particular like niche in general for like a lot of Caribbean artists. Like I don't know, personally anyway, that many Caribbean artists who are like doing large scale digital sort of installations with light the way that you're doing. It's a very, very particular thing. And it's like, I mean, the Caribbean's kind of known for the quality of light here. So it's a very particular way to work, and I think it's really interesting. So my question for you is, you know, as you work as both an educator and an artist, I just want you to speak a little bit about how being an artist in the region affects or influences the way that you teach your students. So like specifically I'm thinking about like what it is that you're trying to give them in terms of feeling prepared for a life of living and working here and the challenges that come with that. And then outside of that, I also kind of want to know about how being an educator has an impact on your practice, because it takes up a lot of time and care, and we know that energy is the precious resource of being here. So yeah, how you're teaching your students to thrive here and how being an educator has affected your practice. That's the main thing.
So the first question, I try to make them be aware of their surroundings. Like in my practice, even though I use a lot of digital techniques and mediums, most of what they create is actually always from paper, from using a pencil and paper,
Right.
and then we see how to translate it digitally, but keeping this essence of their marks,
Right.
their
The material.
identity in the way they use the medium. So that I think that differs us from a more occidental way of seeing digital media, where you only basically sit at the computer
Right.
or you only create everything entirely in 3D.
It's a more grounded experience.
Most of the times. So that's like one of the first aspects. So most of the exercises that they have is are on like a weekly base. They have evaluation on a weekly basis. Like I'm really into like, okay, this is our studio practice, and I need you to focus as if you are in your studio. And it's not you're going to work when you want to.
Right.
It's basically every week
The
we have
discipline.
like assignments on a specific team. So that's one of the points where they're a bit destabilized. They're a bit
Reluctant?
unstable
Yeah,
for them because they're not used to being like working on a weekly basis.
Yeah, no.
So that's a strong
makes
point. And then the other thing is I always ask them. Martinique, for instance, is like 250, 400,000 inhabitants.
Which is crazy.
How can we compete with Cuba, Haiti, Santo Domingo, and other places that also have art schools, but that each year
Right.
brings out like I don't know how many hundreds graduates.
Yeah. that
So
makes sense.
the whole idea is to, with digital practices, to try to make them be conscious of what's their added value as a French Caribbean,
Their
and also
context.
realize that we are not independent like most of the other islands.
Right, because that's a really, really big impact
So
on
how
the
does that
environment you're
impact
working in.
your practice? How does that impact your expectations? How does that impact how the other islands perceive you? So this they don't get really much unless they did Erasmus or exchange programs abroad.
Right.
There's where they start to understand more about that concept. But I try to emphasize a lot on that part also.
That makes sense. I like that you're kind of stressing this sort of like exposing yourself to like other ways of people working and understanding like the way that you are situated within the Caribbean, because like people tend to paint us with like a broad brush and we're just all the same, and it's not the case, because as you said, it's like we have people who are from nations that are independent, from nations that are still overseas territories, and what that means for us, because like I think Caribbean experience does have like a sort of, you know, underlying thread that feels similar and familiar for all of us when we're visiting other places in the Caribbean, but like we know that it's not as simple as saying that we're all the same. And it's good that you're kind of helping them to really unpack and think through the specificity of like how they interact in the world as artists. So I appreciate that. Thanks, David.
So the second question,
Yes.
basically teaching art in the art school or community helped me structure my practice because having to present myself, having to challenge the students having to develop their critical distance. I have to actually develop mine even more, obviously. So I think over the 15 years, as a lecturer, I actually progress in applying to open calls, mainly because I actually teach, and that helped me structure my reflection, how my concept, how am I going to bring it to the table, and what aspect of the concept I'm going to put forward and stuff. Because these are things that when I was a student, I didn't learn.
No, because of course.
So sometimes in certain exercises, they have really actual, real applications that they have to apply to. And I try to give them advice on how maybe they can go about it.
It makes sense. I feel like it's like there's this very important sort of thing in trying to make sure they understand themselves in the world and also understand like just the logistics of how a lot of this stuff functions, because I don't think most of us got taught how half of these things work when we were in school. But because of that, we're also actively trying to help people younger than us be able to actually deal with it, because it's just, it's too much. It's too much. It's like we've already got, anyway, we're going to dig into this later, but like there's so much more I feel like that's expected of us. So I feel like you're helping kind of prepare them in that sense. And I think that's admirable. Thank you. Right. Katherine, it's your turn. Give us a little intro, and then I got my question for you.
Sure. Thank you, Natalie. My name is Katherine Kennedy, and I'm a Barbadian artist, arts educator, and arts administrator. And I've worked at a space in Barbados called the Fresh Milk Art Platform since 2012, and it was founded in 2011 by Barbadian visual artist Annalie Davis. It's been a space really that just tries to support production of emerging artists and create opportunities for local artists, but also regional artists to network with each other, know each other, and just continue to find ways to make our work.
Yep. So basically just adding to the sustainability of this place. Cool, cool, cool. No big deal. Thank you. No, but like for real, like important work. So you mentioned that in addition to your practice as an artist, you're also an arts administrator and an educator. So the multi-hyphenate existence that a lot of contemporary artists experience here. But for now, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about Fresh Milk. So you've been a core part of the Fresh Milk team, like you said, for about a decade, and you recently received an incredible grant. So I want you to speak a little bit to the grant, and I want you to share how your experience as an artist in Barbados has shaped the way that you're working with this grant and how you're kind of using this money to try and further some good for the rest of the community.
Well, sure. I mean, so this year, Fresh Milk was very fortunate to receive support from the Mellon Foundation, the US-based Mellon Foundation. And I think being given that level of support, which is something we haven't had over the duration of the platform's existence, it's not only shaped the way we're thinking about our programming, but as you said, we know the struggle of what it is to try to achieve funding to apply for these grants. So one of the programs that we've been trying to offer through Fresh Milk since the Mellon grant is to have a re-granting program. So we're thinking about how do we make that money available to Barbadian artists and Caribbean artists, because we know how difficult the politics of our spaces can be in terms of applying for funding. So we've just finished the first iteration of this program, and we're going to do it over the next 2 years. So we're trying to think about every edition. We're hoping to grow, learning more, learning what the needs of the artists are, identifying who's applying, what they need the money for, and we're trying to not be prescriptive in how we use the grant, because so much funding is often tied to a specific project, or it's to the artist trying to serve the needs of the organization providing the money. So we're seeing how best we can mitigate that, and how we can just say that this money is a recognition of the good work that you've been doing as an artist, because that's what we feel we have been given through the Mellon Foundation.
I feel like Fresh Milk generally is like very humble about how perceptive and observant and impactful you are as a space, because like the thing is just like there's a lot of people who have like this shared experience that we're all like talking about right now, but there's very few people I feel that actually, one, try to act on it, and two, then have the actual means to act on it.
I mean, I think we couldn't exist without the amazing work that's being done by our community. It's the reason that we want to do what we're doing, and it's like David, Fresh Milk came out of our experiences teaching at Barbados Community College. Annalie taught there for several years.
Right.
I'm now teaching there. I thought I was going to be there for 3 years. I'm going into the 4th, so I'll see you in 15.
Real.
But I think that, you know, we recognize that spaces put time and money into educating these artists and, you know, bringing these amazing contemporary emerging artists into our space, but then after they leave, where's the support, you know?
Right.
And so that's how Fresh Milk began, but by extension, it's really built our network throughout the region. I'm fortunate to be here with other artists from the Caribbean that I know through other programs that I've, you know, worked with them on. Through Fresh Milk, I'm able to show the work of Barbadian artists that have done residencies. So really, it's just stressing the importance of community.
Right.
And how can we see how we give back to that community that has already given us so much.
It was beautiful. Thank you so much. No, for real. All right, so I'm going to dig into the group questions now. And I think this is like a good point for me to kind of touch on this first question. And you can, you know, respond as you like in whatever order. You could go this order if you want. You can, you know, not answer if you don't feel like it. You're good. But the first question is, how does the infrastructure in your country or your space support or hinder your creative practice? This could include access to necessary resources, general logistics, or the impact of government policies or the lack thereof on your work. So basically just how does living and working in the space that you're in and its infrastructure affect the way that you work and, I guess by extension, the way you feel like your community has to work? Ooh. I can pick. I can be like the teacher in the class, you know. You could also take a second.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing from David. But
Ridiculous.
Here in the Bahamas, well, we have a really great audience and
as evidenced here today.
and buyers, and people are really invested in artists' work here.
Yeah.
So we're really fortunate to have like platforms like this, and we've quite a few galleries, east, west, middle.
Quite a healthy art ecology, like generally, right?
Yeah.
Like we have, I think, perhaps like a few more spaces than other places might have access to.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I feel like part of that might be because of like where we are, like in terms of like our geographic location, but it does really like, it does affect things when you know that there are spaces already built for you to be able to kind of come into, which I think does affect things.
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing.
I think community here has probably done a lot of the work. I imagine
Facts.
it's going to be similar to what everybody in the Caribbean is saying.
Yeah.
I don't. I find government is more front-facing, so
Right.
they want to help things that are visually like effective to the outward world,
Right.
and they don't have a lot of policy or things in place to help the kind of soul of
Right.
of the Bahamas. They are more inclined to redirect money away from that into something that's
Yeah.
like gonna look good in an image or
Right.
something that's sold sellable.
Right. And
But
tourism specifically as well. Let's be very
tourism
real.
specifically, or something within government to look good, like
Right.
like a big
For
funeral or something. The funerals take quite a bit of money.
Weirdly,
Some of
I mean,
my
I get it,
research
but-
showed that like some of the money for social services was redirected last year for Wilscomb's funeral. And I thought that was just an interesting parallel to
Right.
how government would probably deal with the arts community. And I thought when I spoke to Annalie earlier this year, and she talked about how the money you guys were dealing with was going to community, it just felt such a different kind of way
Vibe.
of distributing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I feel like there is a lot of this sort of pressure to kind of like Katherine was saying, have things tie into like being, I guess, performing good for the people who are giving you money in a certain sense, or trying to entice that money from certain people. But I know you're about to speak up.
I mean, I think I would never claim to be an expert on the Bahamian art space. I haven't been here enough
I feel like
to
you know enough though. You know enough.
But I think that coming into this space, it feels very different from our perspective because we do see the difference that kind of like the support and interest in contemporary arts and having commercial galleries or having more galleries available on the island. I think I can really see the impact of that on my limited knowledge of the Bahamian art space. I mean, of course, what you're saying with the challenges of kind of being performative or having to fit a certain mold in order to be seen as legitimate or to be seen even as Caribbean is something that we struggle with across the region, I think. You know.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But it is always interesting to me to see the difference between how we're functioning in Barbados, how we imagine other people might be functioning, even if it has to do with, for example, the like French connection in the French Caribbean, and whether we perceive that to mean, oh, they must have more access to certain resources in a certain way, and yet you have these very similar struggles that are still happening across the board. So I do think it's interesting as well, and I think tourism is something that Barbados and the Bahamas, of course, will share
way too much in
terms of where the funding goes, how we're presenting as artists, how we feel tied to certain narratives. But I also think that's, you know, as we see in a lot of work, it creates very interesting opportunities to interrogate and challenge that notion.
Right. The sort of counter-narrative kind of opportunity, which is necessary because we don't have a lot of spaces, I think, that actually can fulfill that purpose for us outside of tourism. Like, I don't really know how much else there is, at least like just speaking, I guess, to this context where people feel like they can and should unpack that in a particular way. Because I think it's just, obviously it's been like so kind of pushed to all of us for so long. It's how we know people make money for a couple hundred years now. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a long-standing thing, but, and also just because it's long-standing doesn't mean it's necessarily good for us as is. So it's just nice to kind of have some space to unpack that a little bit. And
I find here, though, interestingly enough, I think the work done by the NAGB being open now for 20 years.
Yeah, actually,
And,
yeah. Over 20.
And then there's the space that we used to work with, the Diagler Art Foundation. They would loan work out to, they still do loan work out artwork into some public spaces and offices
Absolutely.
and things like that. And 100 other initiatives that have helped everybody feel like they're a part of the art community.
I think that's the thing.
I think that's really a real benefit to being here. Is like I don't know that you'd feel that in a city.
Right. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Like the level of intimacy and closeness I think that you can get is like the thing. Because I remember as well, like when I was in conversation with Katherine, she was speaking about this. So like, I guess, I don't know if you want to speak to your context in Martinique before I jump onto this, because, you know.
In Martinique, I have the impression that there's a bit more, since it's a French territory, things feel a bit more close. The infrastructures that are in place are more the Ministry of Culture. That's where you can like apply for support. But then again, depending on the type of work that you have and the knowledge of the type of work that you have, the understanding of the work can have influences on the support you will get.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
There are not many like local initiatives, because the foundations that we do have are like foundations in telecommunications, but they don't have any links with art.
Interesting.
Some foundations are like from the car industry, but then again, working with artists, they have like a very traditional vision of art, so palm trees and coconuts and stuff. So I do feel that although most of the other islands have the impression that the French islands are thriving, like with a lot of grants and support and stuff, we don't have like a museum. We don't have any national gallery. We have like 2 or 3 official exhibition spaces, but and some of them are like artists run, like also. So you do feel like a sort of cleavage. Like when I came here and I went to like the different spaces in the hotel, like Currents, and I was just like,
right. I know. It's just like, damn.
This is different. So for instance, in Guadeloupe, there's no museums, there's no exhibition spaces. In Guadeloupe, it's really even worse than in Martinique, and they actually admire Martinique. So Martinique has the Fondation Clément, that everyone is actually looking at, but from the Fondation Clément, historically is a bit ambiguity
Yeah, ambiguous.
because of the colonial past. But most artists locally, they think that they have achieved success when they exhibit there because the foundation has a background of buying a few pieces from the artist.
Right, okay.
But that's like one shot.
right.
I find it's difficult to find like a sort of
Like ongoing
consistency
support.
in projects for now at least. So there are grants, but then you can feel that it's sort of like limited to the amount of artists and to the different type of practices.
That makes sense. And I think the funny thing is that people would perhaps ignorantly assume that if you're still part of the colony that you would have more access and you would have more spaces, especially because like at least my understanding of France is that they push a lot of money into the arts, right? So it's just, isn't it funny how it doesn't seem to trickle down and end up in certain other places, right? Like anyway, I feel like there's several sets of conversations happening around people saying whether or not you should be independent or remain a territory and everything else, but at the same time, it's just like these are all the same issues regardless. They just take a slightly different flavor, I feel like, depending on if you're independent or not or your particular space, but that just, again, it's just that lack of having, I think, a healthy and robust like art ecosystem with having enough spaces that are like available for people to try things and experiment and not make it so that like the one time you show at Fondation Clément is like, that means that that's it for you. You just have to wait for that moment and that's a big deal. And it's like, no, you need spaces to kind of think through things and try things and experiment a little bit. And I think that that sort of idea that you have to have things polished and ready might be kind of rooted in some of the colonial struggles that we have here, and I think it really, really affects the way that we produce work, even when we're making work that's not necessarily for people to see. You know what I mean? It's like we're always performing for someone a little bit, I feel like. So, and that's, I guess, why community is so important. So that's like my next question.
I just would like to add that
Please.
I'm speaking from the visual arts aspect, but when I speak with my friends that are dancers, they seem to be structured in a different way.
That makes sense.
And it seems to be like the community or the infrastructure is used to them being like having like salaries, having fixed like sort of income that's actually reference.
It's amazing they have that for dancers, but not for visual artists.
No.
Because like normally like it's really hard for people who are like doing like dance or any kind of like movement work. Like it's almost like unheard of, I think, in a lot of ways. So that's like actually crazy. That's blowing my mind a little bit. Not gonna lie. So nothing for artists? Not really?
Not in the same way.
Damn.
Definitely not. They will, like when you look at the way they structure the applications, it's totally different from what we will do. For instance, you do have the French Institute that's quite active and more active in our region. That wasn't in the past, but thanks to Julien Crozet, the French Martinican artist that represent France at the Biennale, the Venice Biennale, it seems to be changing because there's a bigger awareness on the French Caribbean. But it's slow, but it's coming. So maybe that's going to be a change.
I feel like it's also like that thing of like where you have to somehow show well abroad for people to then value the thing at home, which is such a difficult thing to have to contend with, because like why can't we just be good enough where we are? Because I mean, like I'm like the quality of this to me is incredible. You know what I mean? Like compared to like other art fairs, I feel like it just makes sense. It's just like we have the quality, but for some reason we don't always necessarily like believe it. And again, I think a lot of that comes down to like kind of community support and being able to kind of see yourself with other people. So I guess I want to ask how important community is for you in terms of sustaining your practice here, and what does community look like for you, particularly? You gonna start?
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Tess.
The Bahamian art community, I would say, is really tight-knit.
Yeah.
The galleries work together really well. To talk about like scheduling and
Right.
who's doing what, and
To not have openings on the same night as much as possible, or to do so and then try to have everybody kind of come around the same area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're right, there's a lot of that cross-filtering and kind of trying to discuss and look after each other in that way, which is different because it perhaps could and should for other places be something more competitive. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
so. And I think there's a general sense of people really proud of artists' careers, and so many. I said to myself I was going to count before I came here because I thought numbers could be helpful, but I didn't. How many artists here are working, are living solely off of their artwork, which
Right.
I mean isn't the be all and end all, but it is a metric to show how
It is.
many people are able to
Right.
make a living, and showing internationally. Again, maybe it's not essential, but it's an interesting process, and it's if you go to a fair or a show somewhere in New York and how many people from the Caribbean or from the Bahamas show up to be like, and it's
Right. It's like a weird little diaspora moment.
And I think I was thinking about it a lot, and I think it's maybe one reason is because something specific to the way, at least in the Bahamas, I think it might be Caribbean, but is that artwork tends to be kind of trends towards narrative based, and so there's a lot of stories being told,
and
and then
brain like stories.
yeah,
too, right?
and I think I see a lot more, not always, but in cities or in other communities, you'll see a lot more times people describe their artwork through like it's about futurism, or it's about something more
the genre
based, maybe.
how it's kind of classified in an art historical sense rather than like your experience and how your experience might resonate with someone.
In some cases, and then in
Sometimes.
here, there's a lot of people talking about really personal stories, and I love that.
But in a visual language that's sophisticated, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. And that's the thing I think that people kind of forget as well. It's
Yeah.
just like it's this pairing of things. Like you can talk about very deeply personal stuff, but also it's done in a way where it reads in a way that is understandable and recognizable for kind of contemporary artists like globally.
Yeah.
Like we have that understanding of aesthetically how these things work.
Yeah.
But we're still telling our stories.
And I think people's stories are being told. So people's friends and families, members who are artists are really telling their family story. And so
Right.
like everybody's can see themselves in the artwork. And it's, I think in that way it is a part of the kind of healing. Our artworks are really doing some work. Like
Right.
our
work.
community is doing some healing work. And
Facts.
I think for that reason, it's very easy to get behind it and
That makes a lot of
be
sense.
invested. And for me, it's very exciting, and
beautiful.
I'm really invested in a lot of my colleagues and friends'
Right.
stories. There's a lot of really good work
Weirdly,
going
because
on.
it's so personal and so intimate to
I
you,
think-
but it's like you're sharing that, and most of us have, like we were saying before, like a certain kind of shared experience or understandings and like familiarity, and that representation that you're getting at, I think, is
Yeah.
like the big part of what makes it feel accessible for people.
Yeah, if you choose any of the artists, right now that maybe are like showing in New York or whatever that we all know, and Jeffrey Maris and Nina
Right,
Major,
right.
and you just know exactly where that artwork
Right.
is coming from, and where, and you understand the nuance of it and why it's so important for us as a community to have that story told. I don't know. I think that's one of the beautiful things about coming from a small community.
The representation, the sort of integrity, I think, in how you approach things. That makes sense. And what about for you?
I mean, well, I think another thing that kind of unites us and why a lot of our stories might take this more narrative or personal approach is that we're from a region that has not, like, historically been a part of the main narrative
Right.
globally. You know, we have to tell our own stories, and artists, as
'Cause
you
who
say,
else?
are doing a lot of the work in that way. And we're kind of building an archive that we haven't had the privilege of having in this region. And I think it's also, you know, in terms of how we describe our work, how we show our work, we have to work twice as hard to get the same
Right.
opportunities as a lot of artists in other
Facts.
parts of the world. And the plus and the minus of that is that, you know, it means that we do have a lot of this very complex kind of visual narratives happening. And I think we think very carefully, the contemporary artists in the region, about our work in a way
Absolutely.
that maybe some people, I'm not saying that other places don't have complex
know,
work,
but
it is, we are presenting ourselves from a particular point of view that requires very careful consideration. And that means the negative of that, of course, is that we often end up being the artist, the administrator, the curator. We feel we need to fill all of those roles because we're so conscious of how our work is being received and how we are going to get into these other spaces that other people have more automatic access to.
That makes sense. So it kind of like the the idea that you have to kind of take on all these different roles is partly born out of needing to understand how these things function so that you can translate your experience and deal with your experience like elsewhere, kind of thing.
But it also means that we're really great.
Also facts. Also
There's
facts.
that, just.
I mean, we just have like wide skill sets because we have to. It's like, yeah, it might not be ideal to have to be all these things if you don't necessarily feel like you wanted to, but also, I don't know, I think there's something kind of beautiful about stumbling into these different roles and learning the skills from it, just as much as I can say this like casually, like, you know what I mean, in a certain sense. Like, I'm doing this because I have to, but it's not my thing. But also now you're a videographer also. You know what I mean? Like, just randomly. And it's just like, okay, not your thing, but you just happen to have this skill. It's, I don't know, it's, I think that we kind of turn the limitations and difficulties of this space into something that is tangible and useful for us all the time. I think that's why people kind of keep getting captivated by the region, not just because of the romanticism and everything else, but because, like, we're impressive. We're impressive. We do a lot. Yeah, I think I can say that. We can say that. Okay, but yes. Did you speak to me? Did you speak to yours? Yes?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I admire like projects like Marcel Pinas from from Suriname. I
Yes.
think.
Beautiful work.
And also Victor Anissé, that's a prestigious ceramist from Martinique. And when you speak to both of them, they are always talking about we are no longer the periphery.
Right.
And in their way of having curators, working with curators or directors of museums and spaces is actually bringing them to our region.
Right.
Not only like presenting them the work abroad, but having them come to experience the geography, the surroundings.
Right.
So that's, I think that's a part of how change or whatever perceptions is going to happen.
That makes sense. I feel like it's the community kind of getting educated in its own way, and it's funny that like the thing that we feel so limited by is also the thing that like outside eyes completely just like are drawn to about this place. Is just like we might, I mean, I don't want the narrative to just be around like struggle, but we do tend to struggle with certain things here, like just on a logistical level. Like even when we were talking before, it was just like, oh, just to be able to get paint and canvas and whatever else here, like sometimes that is just an unnecessarily like layered and difficult process. I think that might be why I unfortunately like no longer make work, because I think I found it too hard. It's just too much for my brain, like just the logistics of like the everyday and trying to figure out like where to get this stuff, and like trying to deal with not having things, I guess, more immediately can be difficult and can be hindering. But again, all these things that we struggle with make us so inventive and make other places have to kind of put their eyes on us because we have to do things a different way. If that makes sense. And that's kind of, again, also why like having a community that supports you is important, because it's other people working the way that you're working. It's not trying to trap yourself in something that I guess you might feel obliged elsewhere. And again, this is like a lot of sort of generalizations about also diaspora experience, which we're going to dig into tomorrow, which will be really interesting. But anyway, just thank you. Just that. So I guess within this, how do you manage feelings of frustration or cynicism, if you have any, around the difficulties or limitations of being based in the region? This was the big one when we were all talking, for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's a tough one.
It was like, I ready.
I don't really have an answer besides drugging myself with magnesium.
No, magnesium is important. It helps.
Yeah. Magnesium, and
real.
And shutting down sometimes. That's like,
taking time to yourself.
So I don't really have any solutions because I can talk the whole day for all the problems that we have.
I know.
So I'm just trying to, so the positive thing is, magnesium. That's my key. That's my key word now. It's like, okay.
I love that. It's just like, you can't fight it. Take supplements. That's it. That's the advice. I'm here for it. I'm here for it because
It's
real
solid
talk.
advice.
Honestly.
Solid.
Reality is reality, you know? So, what about for you, Catherine?
I mean, I guess going back, I know we keep returning to community, but having
Yeah.
safe spaces to speak about these things with each other,
Important.
to vent the cynicism.
As we have done. You know?
That's it. And being here with people that I've met throughout the years,
Right.
it is also a very rare thing, to be able to be all together in
true.
one space.
Also
and
facts.
I think
Thank you.
the conversations that we've had, will span the positives and the negatives and the cynicism, and you do feel like that sense of solidarity. And I think, dark humor,
Right? That
born
is a
of
good.
all the trauma, very important.
Honestly, here
Cannot
for it.
stress that enough.
Yeah, no,
Memes
it
are a
works.
love language, and Caribbean people make the best memes.
Don't
So-
we? Don't we? I just saying. Caribbean internet is like something else. And they're lucky to have us. You're welcome. Like, just that. Right. And for you, how do you deal with the cynicism? I know the eyebrows go. Let's go.
I mean, I think this question, I think this question deserves a lot of time, and
It does.
here's why.
No, agreed.
Because
agreed.
I think it's a matter of getting stuff done for sure. But also, I've found in the last few years because of social media, I don't know if you guys found this too, there's so many things going on in front of you that you feel like this shouldn't be happening. And
Yeah.
it's so in
Yeah.
it's front of you. So it's like small things like this shouldn't be happening, maybe something at the bank.
Right.
But also, it's also on social media. And I feel like this feeling of powerlessness
Yeah.
has become really pervasive
Yeah.
for me. And like, how
It's
do
also
you
a
wake
global
up every
moment.
morning and know that all of this stuff is happening? To me, it seems
Right.
really relevant to like us right
Absolutely.
now. And how do you cope? Like, what do you do? Are you just angry all day that all about everything? I mean, you just name anything, right? Like,
climate
about
crisis.
climate
like,
crisis.
there are people here whose homelands were getting like torn up days before this fair, right? And we just are all still, we can show up because what
Right.
do Caribbean people do? We show up, we get the
Yeah.
thing done. Like, for better or worse, I know that's like a trauma response too, but also like, what else can we do? But just keep going,
yeah.
you know?
So I don't know if I have an answer, but it's been on my mind. I
Makes
think
sense.
there has to be a solution. My idea right now is to try to like do something to mitigate one of the things yourself, but it does
Makes
seem
sense.
really a genuine issue. Like, I think that people now who are on social media are going to be feeling really powerless and kind of
Yeah.
frustrated.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And like, how do you cope? Maybe, I don't know.
No, I think it makes sense. It's just kind of, again, it's just this sort of thing of like, we're constantly, I think, having to deal with like increasingly heavier and heavier things to deal with, the poly crises and like everything else. And it's just, you also have to make a life in the middle of looking at all that. And that's really hard. And also, especially, it's very hard here, I think, or if you're from here and you're living elsewhere. Like, either way, I think there's like something about being tied to the region that makes things both difficult and also makes you somehow more resilient than most people. And you just kind of find a way to cultivate happiness in little pockets, maybe. Like, that's, at least, I guess, in my mind, that's like, I think the thing that's consistently kind of helped people. And again, it's like with community, it's just like, you tell the dark jokes, you send the memes, you take the magnesium, you try to like view your social media intake in a particular way and try to like, all of you, like you feed into your community as a way to try and make the world more viable for yourselves. And that's also why I specifically wanted to have all of you talking here today as well, is just because you're not just like dealing with this stuff individually, which is fine, but you're dealing with this stuff as a person and an individual, and also thinking about how that and your experience fits into like the wider community and how to make that better by making it better for yourself as well as for other people. That's the thing. It's not just you being stuck in your studio, isolated, like, oh, I found out this thing for how to get like, I don't know, paint, canvas, whatever, and it's like super easy. You're gonna tell people. You know what I mean? Like, I think that a lot of the coping mechanisms that we have are so rooted in just like collective care and community and like all the sort of, I guess, underpinnings, I guess, of what for me makes like the Caribbean, but I don't know. I don't think there is like a straight up answer, but we have to try. You know, that's the thing. We just have to try. Did you have more? No? You good? Okay. So I guess within that, let's look at something a little bit brighter, because we deserve that too. So what opportunities or advantages have you gained specifically from being based in the region that you might not have gotten elsewhere? Or do you feel like there's more opportunities like here versus being in the diaspora? Like, how does that kind of work for you? What's been the benefit?
I mean, I'm a broken community record at this
No,
point,
I'm with you
but
though, because this is why we
it
friends,
is,
Catherine. Like, you're good.
I think it can be easy to maybe be swallowed up in the large, like, kind of metropoles
Right.
of the world. You know, you want to be an artist, you want to make yourself known, but making yourself stand out can be difficult when you're in
Right.
this large sea. Where we have a smaller pool of people here,
Right.
but we have very talented people
Right.
here. And when you do network and you have this genuine desire to support each other, it means that we're not necessarily being lost in this
Or competing.
larger sea. You know, we are able to say, "Hey, I saw this opportunity," and you send it to each other. You build long-lasting relationships, and that's something that, you know, that really does keep us going in like the more difficult moments of practicing in this region. So I think that, yeah, that's for sure would be
It makes
my
sense.
biggest bonus in practicing in this environment. Is
feel
the
like-
fact, yeah, we can all know each other.
Right. It takes away some of the, I guess, very like sort of shallow competitiveness that you might have elsewhere, and instead it's just like, I do better, we do better. You do better, I do better, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, because once there's, I guess, more voices in a particular space that are kind of getting recognition, everybody benefits from that, right?
Yeah, I
and I
mean-
think we all kind of work in that way, especially
Yeah,
because, like,
it's-
you know, you work with like Holly and
I mean,
Annalie
not-
and everybody like Fresh
Not
Milk
to
and
say that there isn't that kind of like, you know,
No, of
some
course.
people do say, you know, it's a small number of opportunities and there can be gatekeeping in that way, but I think
That's
most
true.
of the people practicing now, you know, emerging maker
Right.
and a number of the established artists are trying to shift that mindset, and
Because they don't have
that's
nobody.
incredibly important.
Facts. Because I think, like, again, I think some of that comes down to the sort of like scarcity mindset and worrying that there's not enough, and it's just like we only get more by working together and making more. You know, so that makes complete sense. Thank you for that. Right. Any other unexpected benefits of working in the region? Opportunities?
I think for us
feel it.
here, we have so many opportunities to exhibit.
That's true.
Everybody, each space has like a really unique vibe for who might exhibit there
That's
well.
true.
Like
That's true.
Turn and the Current and 6260 and the
Right.
DAF and the NAGB and Antonius's Spot and ICE and you know,
They
I'm
just
gonna
take
miss,
up different demographics.
miss
That's
somewhere
true.
cab, and everybody has different goals for how and why they're exhibiting, and so I guess a lot of artists here get the chance to try stuff out.
It's like there's a space
Yeah.
for everybody when you like putting it that way. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, because like it's not something that we haven't necessarily thought about, but I don't think I've thought about it in this particular way. But there really is like, there kind of is a space for everybody here
Yeah,
in like the Bahamian like art ecology, which is kind of incredible. Because
Yeah.
like you could be at any level of training or experience, and there's something. And I know that like when you get to a certain level, it can feel like there's a bit of a ceiling, but like, no, I think overall it is just being able to have somewhere to experiment and try something out without it being too high stakes, and then other
Yeah.
places to try and have things get supported, and it counts as like higher stakes abroad,
Yeah.
even though it doesn't necessarily always feel like that here,
yeah,
which I think is like, that's useful. You get like
Yeah.
you get more chances to kind of try different levels of things, I guess.
absolutely. And if you think about that, that gives you so much leverage to improve your work.
Absolutely.
And then also to maybe get an opportunity somewhere else. Like a lot of artists that we all know were exhibiting here, and somebody saw their work and gave them an opportunity internationally.
which is incredible.
And I don't think that that's common. I think if you were thinking about like New York-based artists, I think they would be really trying to get a show.
Right.
You know?
It'd be hard to kind of get into any of the one spaces, and we kind of, out of necessity, we have a lot of different kinds.
Right.
And therefore the access to all those different kinds, because they also can't function without artists. Because again, people forget that these things can't function without artists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of always gets like lost in the thing. But no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's having that kind of variety of entry points, I guess I'll say, is a really, really important thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And for you, David, any unexpected benefits of working here that you feel like you wouldn't have gotten elsewhere?
I think every week I ask myself that question. Now.
Real?
Every week I'm like, if I had the opportunity to move somewhere, where would it be? I still don't have the answer, really.
Right.
And sometimes I think I do, but I just don't feel that I have the energy to
Also facts.
do the step as I could have done 20 years ago.
Because diaspora comes with like a whole other set of problems and difficulties to deal with. Because I mean, I think that we're all Caribbean people, period. It's just either you're Caribbean at home dealing with Caribbean problems at home, or you're Caribbean elsewhere dealing with Caribbean problems elsewhere.
Yeah.
But either way, we're us, and we know. But it makes sense. So like
also,
you're.
I think in my point of view, in my field, I've been pushing that there's more opportunities abroad. More challenges also, but more opportunities. It gives us the opportunity to see what is our value or talent compared to other international artists that we can meet in festivals and stuff. Regionally, I saw that there's a new trend, like younger artists that graduated like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, are actually working together to create exhibitions, create associations, and structure themselves to be able to show their own work on teams that they
Like
are
collectives.
actually have no reflection on. But that's like basically the only initiative that I see compared to like the exhibition at Fondation Clément. But yeah, so it's not as active as Sion. It's quite pretty slow. And most of the work that I do, I answer open calls.
Yeah.
So that's how I managed to be abroad, actually.
That makes sense. And I think there is something about being from the smaller place that, if nothing else, it makes people elsewhere intrigued, because they don't really know a lot about us for the most part other than stereotypes. And sometimes, as much as that is frustrating, that can be like, I think for a lot of artists here, like that can be the kind of way in to kind of Robin Hood the opportunities from elsewhere to like bring them home, you know what I mean? And to like bring it like, I guess a little closer to yourself. But yeah, it's hard because like we have to balance all the infrastructural difficulties with the fact that we do get a certain level of visibility that's higher than we kind of realize than like when we're in here. I think when we're like living and working here, we don't kind of realize how many eyes we have on us as a region. And then it's only once you kind of like get out a little bit that you realize like, oh snap, like everybody knows about these three people who I just be having coffee with, you know, like on a regular, like it's strange, but it's kind of I don't know, it's a weird payoff. And I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know if it's a fair exchange or not, but I feel like it is what we deal with though. It's like, I think we give up a sort of ease for having a little extra visibility in a certain way, in a weird way.
I think it also has to make us pretty discerning about the opportunities that we take.
Facts.
Because, you know, we don't want to end up as tokens or being exploited in one way where, you know, it's like being the exoticness in your exhibition, you know. So we do need to see there's a lot of eyes on us, and it really is up to us to decide or try to decipher who's genuine, who's really interested in our work and what we're really doing, or who we are then going to be serving by having artwork in your show. Like, we don't want to then just be exploited in a whole new neo-colonial way in the region.
Facts. Because I think we're all very used to other people telling us what the Caribbean is as a region. But when we actually try to speak, it's hard to find the people who you know are actually going to listen. But we can always tell. We can always tell. That's one thing. The discernment, like you're saying, I think that does come through pretty quick because just to be very, very blunt, I think you get to know who the bullshitters are really quick. Like, you know, just real. So I guess, okay, let me see. just again, because like the infrastructural difficulties and everything is like coming back for me a lot. What's one change that you think could be made, and this could be either at a government level or a cultural level, that would really, really impact your space like tomorrow? Like your community would immediately benefit. Like what's just the one simple thing that you think is needed? There's, I'm sure, a lot, but.
I think, I don't know if it's just about the art community, but I think if the idea of quality of life became more integrated into the conversation of what we are asking for out of leadership and what they can actually provide. I would argue that they can provide different things, and I think it's just not a part of conversation.
Great.
I think it might impact our community. I mean, we're thriving really, but it might impact the sense of self or the sense of like being able to take care of the community a little bit more from the internal out.
If you have more space.
Or just support the art community on more of a base level, like providing, for example, a grant that we have a charity here called the Tribal Arts Foundation, and they do provide grants for material and things like that, and they're really wonderful. But potentially there could be more, of that kind of stuff, of just.
And there's a need for it.
Yeah,
clearly.
of just giving people to make rather than
like Fresh
to
Milk is doing
produce.
too.
I mean, I think that's probably a worldwide issue,
but it is something I feel like that's particularly been lacking here for a long time. Like just the idea of like government grants as a thing, just period. Like just that level of support in that way.
Yeah.
Would be huge, and that's usually the first thing that comes to my mind too.
And even more than that, it's like about the idea that is okay to support somebody's
life
invisible practice, because ultimately it's
that
hugely beneficial, right? But so what Fresh Milk is doing essentially, like giving people the opportunity just to keep working,
right, in a way that brings them ease, because when you have that ease and that spaciousness, the work is different, right? That's why, like, as much as like university is like expensive and difficult, when you're actually there, like being able to have that dedicated time to think about something is a huge deal, which is also why it's important, like as educators, like what you're doing, you know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely with you on that, for sure. Right, what about for y'all too? What one change could be made that would be like really impactful for Barbados, Martinique, or Saint Martin?
For me, the list is long. I can't choose. There's just too much. I think maybe
just an overhaul.
Like, the overhaul is more vision. Like if I have to think from the top up, like a better vision of what's contemporary art, what's art practices, and a less pass vision of things.
Yeah. Less dated.
To like be open to new practices, no matter what they are, performance and stuff.
The cultural shift.
So like beyond the financial aspect and support, I think we really feel limitations in the vision that people have of the community and also the politics of what can be art and what is it useful for.
That makes
so
sense.
yeah, that's I think a daily struggle that you can face most of the time.
That makes
because
sense.
I find that as artists, we spend a lot of time, I'm not sure if the word is correct, educating or teaching or
no, it really
assisting the community and the politics. And it seems to be like an ever ongoing struggle and a repetitive struggle. So
Katherine, your face, because agreed. No, you right. That's it. You were simply correct. No, it is that though. It is. I feel like half the time it is like fighting the sort of cultural shift that you need to happen and that you want to happen, because like especially if all of us have been doing this for like years, you know what I mean? It's just, it can feel a little like sort of drudgery sometimes, like, okay, I have to explain this again, I have to explain this can be art again. But all of us know that we were the people who didn't know that half these things could be art before either. You know what I mean? So it's just like you kind of also have like that level of like, you know what, let me make sure I keep my patience. Let me make sure I'm actually doing my part to, like you're saying, educate community, to help like facilitate a cultural shift, because at the end of the day, artists are cultural workers. You know what I mean? Like we're cultural activists and agitators and everything else, and that really is the thing that kind of shifts things. And again, the counter narrative to tourism and colonialism and everything else is just, yeah, it just makes sense. That's some of the big things that we deal with. And it does affect you on it every day. Makes sense. And for you, Katherine?
I mean, definitely everything that both of you have said.
Yeah.
And I guess I would add, in terms of Barbados, I would love if we had more flexible spaces to show contemporary artwork. You know, so if we just had like a plethora of gallery spaces, not just in a traditional sense, but just opportunities.
Like artist-run spaces and like
exactly,
other things,
artist-run spaces,
pop-ups.
by extension studio spaces, just accessible, affordable studio spaces for artists to work. It would just be, really great if we created more of those opportunities to show the work, and then hopefully coupled with what David's saying about this magical cultural understanding and bridging that gap with the public, that would be wonderful.
I know. I think the thing is that like maybe some of us forget is that we have been actively building that thing and it has made a difference. We just can't always see it. It's like sometimes a little bit imperceptible, you know what I mean? But if you think about like when you were working 10 years ago or 20 years ago, whatever it is, it's like, you know what? Things are different though. Things are changing. It's maybe too slow for our liking, and that's fair. I think we deserve faster change.
It's hard when you're in it every day, but definitely things are shifting for sure.
And it's because we're making it. So thanks, y'all. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Appreciate you. Thanks, y'all. Also, we have room for questions. If anybody has any questions, please don't be shy. Nothing is stupid. So it said. Yeah, we're humans. We're humans. I feel like this is conversational and casual enough, you know? I'm good. And if not, I have more questions. If that's easier for people. I know it's a little awkward sometimes. I'm looking at you now. No, I'm joking. All right, cool. Should I ask another? Is that cool? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to ask. So I guess I'm just going to have, let's just have this one. Who do you make your work for? So in what way do you consider international audiences when you're making your work? And how does this differ from the way that you think about your local audience? I know. I'm sorry. It's a loaded one. It's a loaded one. I'm being a bit of an asshole. I'm sorry.
I don't necessarily think I consider international audiences when I'm making the work.
I love it. I'm not whispering.
Sorry. I guess the making of the work itself isn't necessarily thinking about, who the intended audience is. Maybe that comes after the work is made and after it's kind of serving the purpose I feel like, that it needs to serve. Then maybe in my statements or how I frame it or how I share it, then maybe that's when that consideration comes in. Like, how am I speaking about this work for a local audience versus a regional or international one? But maybe not so much in the creation of the work itself, because that I think has to kind of serve your just serve your purpose as an artist, what you're trying to achieve, and then after that you think about, well, how do I contextualize this in a way that means I'm not speaking to myself?
Right.
And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. But.
No, it does. I feel like, at least when I was still making work, a lot of it for me was like I felt like I was making something for me that I would have wanted to be represented by, and then presenting it outside of that. But like the considerations for international audiences was only ever something that really came about for me, like in the context of knowing that I had to present internationally, if that makes sense. I think maybe, I don't know. There's a couple of camps. There's the people who I think purely are making work to be, for lack of a better term, like exported, that they know is just going outside the region. And then I think there's also people who know that the work that they make is specifically rooted here and for the region, and it just happens to get shown elsewhere as well. And both of these are important, both of these are good. I think both of them also help shift and shape the way that people view like the region, but it makes sense.
Having a conversation as well with another artist here where we spend so much time explaining who we are, where we come from sometimes in order to contextualize our work for international audiences. And she was saying, well, maybe sometimes we should just put the work out there and intentionally not tell anyone anything.
I'm a big fan of opacity.
And I think that's also tempting, because not everyone around the world doesn't have to spend the time explaining
Right.
who they are and why their work is important.
Like if you see a work by an artist from Ukraine, you don't necessarily know everything about the Ukraine, but you know that you vibe with the work. And then that's enough reason to kind of figure it out. But for some reason, I think we don't always give ourselves space to think that we deserve that as well, because the way that tourism has kind of co-opted our narratives and our identities within the region. So yeah, I like the idea of opacity and not being transparent as a Caribbean artist. I like the idea of having to make them work for it just a little bit, you know? Who do you make work for?
I think I make work for Bahamian community. I was really lucky though, because even the community spaces I worked in, or the galleries at the Diaghilev Art Foundation, we were set, one street in from Junkanoo Beach.
Right.
And we, maybe the 10 years that I worked there, we only had, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 people that weren't Bahamian or living here, or come through the doors. And so our whole programming and work wasn't geared towards us, and it sustained itself. So I think I find actually when people come to our studios, sometimes they ask like, "Oh, are you getting enough opportunity abroad?" Or
because that's the assumption.
Or we've had a lot of people come and say, "I'd like to give you more exposure," or something like that. And I always find I'm like, we're doing good.
Right. It's just like,
fine.
that's so sweet, but also
yeah,
you know nothing.
we're okay. I mean, we're okay. There is value to that, but the value definitely doesn't. There's probably just as much value, right? In like showing your work at home.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It makes sense. I like it. I dig it. And also, like, I mean, I knew you were going to say that you make work for home, because I feel like it's just your work is so completely rooted in the environment and the landscape here. It just makes sense. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for you?
Although the influences in my work like really come from the region, patterns, nature. I think my work, when I create it, I always know that basically it's going to be presented abroad. Because regionally nothing's happening most of the time for me. So the public that can actually understand and open the conversation about my work is abroad. So I don't necessarily create it thinking that locally it's not going to work, but it's just that I have the experience of that. So I just create and I try to see where they can fit.
I feel like it makes sense because you do so
That's
much
a good
public
point.
work.
It's like you just make the work, and makes sense.
Yeah, I dig that. I feel like also because you do a lot of
travel,
public.
so like your work it holds up in every
in any space. It's not that it's also like usually like from what I've seen anyway, it's like very site specific, but it's just I don't know. I feel like because you do so much public work, it's like you're gonna get that mixed bag of people who feel like they can access contemporary art and people who cannot. And a lot of that comes down to stuff that's out of our control, right? A lot of it is to do with like some bourgeois, difficult things from way long ago that are outdated and annoying. But it's interesting. So it's like you're kind of making the work to unpack the work, and then after that it gets kind of translated and understood elsewhere is what I'm like feeling. Yeah? Okay. That's a vibe. All right. I don't know if there's anything else. Are we good? I think we're good. You want a question? You want another question? What's your favorite color? No. Okay. Anyway. So, just for fun. Anyway, thanks so much for being here, y'all. I really, really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I just hope y'all do really well at the fair. Thank you for being committed to the region. Thank you for all the work that you do. Thanks for being.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, of course. Thanks for speaking with me.
Thank you so much.
Y'all the best. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Natalie.
Thanks, y'all.